Right. Right.
And it became a whole other dope movement in itself.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Jon Malone,
Oh man. Well, it was not easy at all to pivot because primarily, yes, everyone knew hip hop supreme. Uh, One thing that I learned from my father also, he always told me, don't be afraid to broaden your horizons. So you have these abilities, don't be afraid to showcase them. And what kind of set that off was I had gone to a Jive Mob rehearsal. Rest in peace, Carlito. Um, I had gone to a Jive Mob rehearsal, and you mentioned Tony. Tony was there, and Shot House was there, and we kind of bounced around the idea because MJ, who was the founder of just another MJ, um, was the founder of Mecca's Groove. He played guitar with Jive Mob. So they kind of tossed around the idea of Mecca's Groove. And initially I was an outsider because they already were doing like Mecca's Groove stuff. And initially it was kind of an offshoot of Jive Mob, but they concentrated mostly on like reggae and dance hall type rhythms, right? And they invited me to come sit in. So I would come and sit in down at Mind Games, which was like their regular gigging venue. And they didn't get a whole lot of people in, but it was someplace for, to work out. I'll come and I'd bring the keys and I'd start singing and they were like, okay, we're on to something. We're going to keep the same aesthetic. We're going to continue to do our reggae tinge stuff, and we do our Sting covers, Police covers, and stuff like that because they love to cover different various Sting and the Police songs, and Black Uhuru and HR and Bad Brains and stuff like they love that stuff too. But they were like, well, let's also entertain doing some of this, kind of, R&B tinged, neo soul type, material, and let Supreme sing and put the keys on it. So that's kind of how that began, how that kind of started, and that kind of just ballooned. The more and more it got more popular. When MJ left, I kind of became the de facto leader of the band. And so I was like, okay, well, let's add a few more elements to the band. And then that's when Beatty came in. And Beatty would add, he coincidentally added the hip hop element to Mecca's Groove, coincidentally. But he also sang and he also played the trumpet. So he's like, okay, well, let's expand it even more. And so that's what we brought. We brought keys into the group to do, background vocals. And then that's when we brought you into the group with the trombone. Brought Joe Hill into the group, mad saxophone skills. And we eventually had this fully kitted out band, And I mean, I loved it. I ain't gonna lie, I loved it. It just, for the time that it was for me taking a break from hip hop a little bit, and I kind of needed to do that so that again, broadening your horizons and putting things to use that you don't really utilize. A lot of folks did not know that I played keys. They knew I made beats. They didn't know I played, and they didn't know I sang. So it was a good exercise for the time that it was. It was a cool time. It didn't last as long as I would love for it to. Shout out to Frost T also. Can't forget he was also part of the fold. It was a great time for me. I thought it was, we made some great music and we got a lot of cool bookings. So one of the bookings that stands out to me is we actually had a gig at the historic Royal Peacock in Atlanta, which was probably Atlanta's most famous venue of all time. So that was a pinnacle moment for me, and for the band. And so I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Mecca's Groove. My father encouraged me to go and check out what was happening in Detroit. Detroit, which is where I initially I was born and raised in Detroit. I migrated to the South in the late '80s, going into the '90s. But at that time, after Mecca's Groove, Detroit was starting to see a kind of a resurgence, a musical renaissance. And at that time, I kind of admired the resurgence of what they were doing in Detroit. I was like, man, I need to really examine this. And so I ended up going to Detroit. I ended up leaving Birmingham, going to Detroit to kind of, navigate where I could go to kind of to enhance my skills. Because at that time, before Mecca's Groove, and I was, we were doing the Eargasm and metaphysics, Eargasmatics, and everything. I was primarily like a sample-based producer. So I went up north, went to Detroit to enhance my skills and to enhance my playing and my beat making skills, because I love Jay Dilla and I love the things that he was presenting. Initially, let me preface that by saying I was a Jay Dilla fan before I even knew who Jay Dilla was. I loved Lab Cabin California by the Far Side. I didn't even know who Jay Dilla was. I saw of course I read liner notes and be like, JD, okay, JD, okay, he's, and then I would see his name a whole lot more often. Okay, Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Common, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, man, this is the same dude. I'm like, I've always been a fan of this cat and I ain't really know who it was. So I was like, let me go to where he was so that I can try to absorb some of that vibe, and I'm gonna bring that back to the soil in Birmingham. So turns out Jay Dilla's teacher was a gentleman named Amp Fiddler. Amp Fiddler, me again not knowing, is a family friend. My father's songwriting partner, Alan Barnes, who was also from Detroit, rest in peace to Alan Barnes. I got in touch with him. I was like, hey man, I'm coming to the D, you know what I'm saying, to kick it for a little while. And he was like, oh, you need to meet Amp. It's like, okay, yeah, bet, So he hooked it up. And I end up going to Amp Fiddler's house on Revere Street on the east side, Conant Gardens, off 7 Mile. And when I tell you this was the place where primarily everybody in that city that had anything to do with hip hop came through there. It was very similar to what we were doing in Birmingham. He at his house, he called it Camp Amp. And as soon as I got there, and like I said, I don't really know this guy. First time I get there, he offers me a tuna fish sandwich, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. And we go down into the basement where he's got all this great equipment and everything. And he's like, man, I'm stuck on this song, man. He plays the beat and everything. He's like, man, you got something for that? I was like, yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't even know this guy. I come to his studio, he immediately puts me to work. It's like, oh yeah, cool. I write, and so I end up writing the first verse of the song that eventually will become I Believe in You, which was the first single off his album that dropped in 2002, 2004, Waltz of a Ghetto Fly. That was the first single. When I was when I got to Detroit, let me tell you, this is crazy. This is gonna sound real crazy. When I arrived there, I'm on the Greyhound bus, right? So as soon as I get there, I got my MPC literally in a literal suitcase. I don't have any clothes or anything. I got an MPC and some floppy disks. And at that time, my MPC 3000 was the pads and stuff were sinking into the machine, and I was like, oh man, let me fix that. So Amp fixed my drum. He fixed my drum machine. So to pay him back for that, I crafted the beat for Unconditional Eyes, and that's my one production credit on Waltz of a Ghetto Fly. I say all that to say this: Amp Fiddler, me going up to learn from him and to be a part of Camp Amp, kind of rejuvenated me, but also that was like my first legit dollar, my first money that I ever made on my own in the music business. Amp Fiddler helped to facilitate that. Of course, I had my father. My father gifted me with his publishing company because he retired. He was like, I'm retiring from the business. You have the publishing company. Okay, cool. But that was done through him. The stuff that I end up achieving with Amp Fiddler was something that I achieved on my own. And I was so geeked when I got my first royalty check that I literally have it, a copy of it with me and a picture of me and Amp on my wall in my studio. In a nutshell, that experience enhanced my musical abilities, and so now I can come back to Birmingham and make the type of music or the style of music that's strictly my own brainchild. It's not necessarily sample based. It's vibey. I often call it kind of Detroit sound with Southern sensibilities. And then it was at that time when I got back, I had gotten reacquainted with Shaheed. Now Shaheed was just a shorty when we were at the Eargasm. Like he would come and try and sneak in. He was just a shorty, fresh out of high school. And he and his brother Bilal and his best friend Rasul, which Rasul was a staple at the Eargasm. Just one of the meanest MCs, one of the coldest MCs ever that I've ever experienced. And Shaheed he would bring Shaheed with him, and he would come to the Eargasm, and Shaheed would kick it and get on the mic, and I really enjoyed his presentation. But anyway, I had gotten reacquainted with Shaheed, who had also taken a break from music and decided to get back into it. And what ended up happening was he had a whole bunch of material, just books and books and books of rhymes. And so we worked on an album, but it was just Shaheed on the marquee. And I was just a producer. It wasn't even Shaheed and DJ Supreme at that time. It was just strictly Shaheed, and I just was the producer. It was mixed a whole lot better. I had enhanced my mixing ability, my engineering skills had gotten a whole lot tighter. And so we really enjoyed how it sounded. And so we worked on another album, and then another album. And then ultimately, it got to the point where we decided, hey man, maybe we need to be a group. Maybe we need to, carry on that group aesthetic because we loved EPMD, we loved Gangstar, we loved Eric B. and Rakim. We were like, let's keep it in that tradition. Knowledge, Rhythm, and Understanding is the first album that we actually released as a group, Shaheed and DJ Supreme. Yep. And that's, we connected with Communicating Vessels, Jeffrey Kane from Remy Zero and The Church. His record label was a boutique label that was located in Woodlawn. And we got with him. And here we go. These are our two albums that dropped on Communicating Vessels. This was the first one, Knowledge, Rhythm, and Understanding, and this is the most recent one. And this, man, Art of Throwing Darts is probably some of the best material. I say that about all my stuff, but this is probably the best material I've ever worked on. We did have some guests. We had some guests on this. Adib or Rasul was on this on our Knowledge, Rhythm, and Understanding album, and Artiste, but and Akil the MC. And that's another thing too, is that we established a relationship with Jurassic 5, and they were so impressed with us that they invited us on tour. We toured the world with Jurassic 5 3 times overseas, and then another time and we did an East Coast tour. And they don't just invite anybody out on tour. So what we initially did was they invited us to come out, Jurassic 5, or Akil, who was initially who we had a relationship with. And we got to know everybody else along the way, but Akil was really the one that facilitated it and was like, hey, y'all, you know what I'm saying, y'all come out with us. And so you can get the feel for it. So that was the first time that we had gone out, and we got to see them. We didn't perform on tour. We did like some after parties, but we were not initially on the tour roster. So when the next year came around and things didn't work out with their normal supporting act, Akil was like, hey man, why don't we get Shaheed and Supreme? They saw that and they were like, okay, well cool, we'll give them a shot. And then the last tour, which was in 2017, we did a tour of the East Coast. And that's when we really came back, and Birmingham, started to really take notice and see that, okay, this is a group that has weathered the storm. I've always looked at it this way. I'm a family first dude. I always strived to make my father proud of my abilities and the things to be able to apply the things that he has taught me about the business. I love it when, my family, sees a lot of the things that I've been able to achieve, and they say, hey, that's my dad, that's my papa. When they get wind of Supreme or they get recognized, you be like, oh, your dad is Supreme. Oh man, your dad, man, that dude, that's a solid dude. That's a solid dude, It's never anything bad. And so I always try to strive for that. As far as the legacy of the things that we've been able to achieve for Birmingham, touring the world with Birmingham on our backs, and then coming home to a hero's welcome, that always sticks out to me. It's been a great journey. I've been able to achieve a lot of great things, stuff that some people only dream of being to achieve. And it's a blessing. It's a blessing that I don't take for granted, and I try to pay it forward with the nonprofit Knowledge, Rhythm, and Understanding. That is the nonprofit organization that myself and Shaheed run, where we partner with various organizations, boys clubs, schools, what have you, and we bring the fundamentals of hip hop to the kids, and to the adults, and that's something that we also take pride in. The fact that more and more people are open to learning more about hip hop culture. Whereas you and I, we came up in an era where the adults looked at it and they didn't take it seriously at all. You know, our elders, they didn't think twice about hip hop. But now that hip hop's in its 50th year, 51st year, and all of the celebrations and things have taken place, they've started to take notice. And so now we've got adults who bring their kids to us and say, hey, what can my child learn about hip hop from you? Okay, well, cool. Well, this is, we'll give you the fundamentals. We have DJ instructors, we have breakdance instructors, we have graph instructors. Shaheed teaches writing, he has writing exercises, teaching them how to form bars and arrange songs. And so whether they get to be a practitioner of hip hop or not, that's something that they can take, that's a skill that they can take with them. And we're proud to say that this is something that we're doing for the community, to give back to the community. Understand that it is bigger than the area where you live. Understand that there's an entire world out there that will dig what you present. Even if you can't get it jumped off here in the city where you live or the area or your block, there is someone in some part of the world that digs what you do. So don't stop, keep going. Maximize everything within your grasp. Learn as much as you can about the business, and then hone your craft, develop your skills, and eventually it'll jump off for you, even if it doesn't jump off right here where you live. And that's how a scene grows. That's how a culture grows. That's how a community grows. So, but if you don't learn anything else, just understand that there's an entire world out there and it's at your grasp.